Hey,
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 this is Fonzie Cast
yeah,
with the two Fonzies,
yep,
British Fonzie and the rest
and the rest.
and the rest. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Um, we'll talk about Star Wars for a while, probably.
I think it's more than probably. I think it's more than probable. I think it's entirely definite. 'Cause good,
Yeah.
so good, so good. What do
Uh,
you say things first?
I mean, it was. Hmm. I mean, it was definitely because we both seen it twice.
Yeah, so good. She saw it twice.
Um, I saw it both in IMAX 3D, and I think the IMAX 3D, by the way, is completely worth it. Spring for it if you can. Because
So I didn't see it in IMAX 3D. I saw it in ordinary, and it was still fucking amazing. But at some point, I would like to spring for seeing it in IMAX 3D because it'll probably be out for a while, and I would happily see it again.
mhm.
I mean, basically, like it was perfect. Like I wouldn't change a thing about it. And I mean, it was one of those things I was quite excited. You know, I was really, really looking forward to it. But wasn't like I didn't kind of expect it to be a pivotal cinema going experience in the way that it so was, in every
Mhm.
sense of the word, just in terms of like reminding me how much I loved the original trilogy, because it was like everything that I loved about the original trilogy. They got that atmosphere and they got that tone in The Force Awakens. It felt like a Star Wars movie.
I mean, I absolutely thought it was better than Return of the Jedi.
You know,
And
I mean,
on my scale, by the way, I think Empire Strikes Back is the best one.
I
That's my scale, and then New Hope, and then now it's Force Awakens. It used to be Return of the Jedi, but now it's Force Awakens.
I mean, I would have to see the original trilogy again. I mean, I actually really, really liked Return of the Jedi a lot. And the Ewoks didn't bother me so much, not in the way
Yeah,
fucking.
no, they don't either. I just feel like there was more going on in the first two than there was in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
Um,
quite
I
possibly.
felt
I think,
like characters had a lot more to do in Return of the Jedi and New Hope. Like
yeah, and there are
Han and Leia
individually.
didn't have as much to do in Return of the Jedi as they did in the first two. I feel like, but that's just my opinion. But I thought Force Awakens was better than Return of the Jedi. It doesn't mean I don't like Return of the Jedi. It just means that I thought there was more stuff happening, and I was more engaged than I was when I watched Return of the Jedi. And by the way, me and my boyfriend went back and watched all of them again, and we watched them in order. And like I've stated
Is
before,
that
I
including?
don't
Is
ever
that
want to watch,
including?
I don't ever want to watch Attack of the Clones ever again. So I'm probably
I
not
didn't.
going to do this again. But
Do you know what? You're the second person that said that to me, Greer, that you would not watch the prequels again. Like you did,
no,
like
like
people have done.
I legitimately like kind of enjoy Phantom Menace for a nostalgic purpose, and then I think Return of the Sith is the best prequel, but Attack of the Clones is like fucking insufferable. I can't watch that movie. It's
You know what? I
legitimately
don't remember.
insufferable, and I fell asleep trying to watch it because I just couldn't get through it.
I remember Revenge of the Sith being the best one. I saw all three of them at the cinema. I've got to say, like, I thought it's really difficult because I'm aware that Attack of the Clones got the best reviews, and I'm also aware that
I
the
don't know
Phantom Menace.
how. I don't know fucking
Oh,
how. The
well,
plot.
but I mean, I'm also aware that that Phantom Menace had Jar Jar Binks, so the scales are kind of tipped against it.
Well, here's the
But
thing.
I mean, it would
I
be.
don't mind Jar Jar Binks as much as other people do. I guess that's kind of weird
No,
of me to think, but I don't know.
it's not weird. I mean,
I don't mind him as much as other people do. I understand the main thing that bugs me about Phantom Menace is the boring political shit, and
yeah,
just
I mean,
it's like
that's what I.
such a slog when the scenes go from like really exciting pod racing and just Qui-Gon Jinn being like a fucking idiot to to like just boring shit where you don't know what the fuck's going on, because
I
Lucas
mean, that was
just
my
kind of
problem.
expected you to know what was going on, and we're like, no, we don't know what was going on.
No, I mean, that was my problem with the prequels is that, well, one of my problems with the prequels is that they were so tedious. They were like completely humorless. They had none of the humor and the wit and the character. Like, whereas this was something that like had all of that. Like, it was really funny and you really cared about the characters, and those things were sorely missing from the prequels. But no, I mean, I would have to say it's hard for me to compare Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace just because yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen them, and I have to admit the scales were unfairly tipped against Phantom Menace because of Jar Jar Binks.
Mhm.
Um, but I do think with all three of the prequels, individually, there are good things in them. So I love Darth Maul.
Yeah.
I love the pod racing. I love the design of the clones. Um, what else do I love? I love the Yoda fight.
I thought the one cool thing I thought about in Attack of Clones was I thought it was cool that like, oh, there's cloning, and all the clones are clones of like Jango Fett. I thought that was pretty cool. Like,
Yeah,
I thought that
yeah,
was a cool idea. But I tell
yeah. I mean,
people, it's it's pretty much all Lucas in these films as to
yeah.
why they're not very good.
I mean,
And
unfortunately,
I understand that George Lucas is like a visionary, and but I
um,
feel like he really got caught up in his own vision in these, which is what people say the most. If you want a good take on the prequels, both of the Clone Wars cartoons do a much better job of using that lore to the best that it can than all of the
yeah.
prequel movies do. So if
I've
you
heard
want
that
that
there.
lore and that story, I would say go watch the Clone Wars cartoons, either one of them. I haven't seen the newer one, but I watched the older one a while ago, and that it's really good.
I mean, I've heard they're very good, and what I've also heard is that I think with George Lucas, like you were saying about him getting caught up in his own vision, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a really difficult one. I wouldn't say he is a visionary, actually, because I think that you'd be surprised how much of the original trilogy, the good stuff, I mean, didn't really have a lot to do with George Lucas. He
Oh
directed
yeah.
one of them, he didn't direct the others, he co-wrote them. But, all the things that I think about when I think of Star Wars that I love, like the performances, like the beautiful designs of the aliens, the beautiful sets, like actually a relatively minuscule amount has to do with George Lucas.
Mhm.
And I think it did just kind of get to the point with the prequels where it was like he was such a powerful bloke that nobody was saying to him, actually, George, I think this is a bad idea. I think this
Yeah,
is
that's
boring. I think
exactly
this
it.
is, yeah, yeah, sure. I
You
mean,
can you can go and watch. There's actually a lot of interesting footage from behind the scenes of specifically the Phantom Menace behind the scenes. If you could go on YouTube and watch them, I'm pretty sure you can find them on there. But Lucas is saying all these ideas, and you can just visibly see in people's faces that they don't like the idea, but
oh,
they won't speak up to him, And there's this one specific part where they're watching like a almost final cut, I think, of Phantom Menace, and by the end of it, like, they're just kind of sitting there, and Lucas acknowledges the fact that, like, he's like, well, I can't go back and change most of this now because it's already been made. All of it's
oh,
already been
well,
done, and even if he wanted to go back and change stuff, he wouldn't be able to, because these guys were saying to him, like, well, the tone shift here doesn't really, like, mesh very well. There's so much stuff going on. Like, you're going from the Gungans fighting the robot army to uh, Padme and all them sneaking into the castle to the Darth Maul fight, and there's just so much going on. Like, and then Anakin is back in the pilot thing, and it's kind of humorous, but then you're going back to the serious scene with Darth Maul killing Qui-Gon Jinn, and like there's so much tone shift going on so suddenly,
I
and
mean, so did they actually say this to him?
yeah, like
And
there's
and so
like they
so
said,
did
like
they all
that's
kind
the
of
biggest problem with the ending of Phantom Menace, and I agree. And even Lucas is like, you know, I can't go back and change anything. He's already written it all. It's already all been done.
So
Um,
this is a really
even if he wanted to cut out stuff, he had made every part of that ending so crucial to the rest of it that if he cut it
yeah.
out, it wouldn't make any sense.
So this is a really like honest documentary then, like because I
It
know
was a behind the scenes, I believe, on the DVD for Phantom Menace.
I'm
Um,
just surprised. I'm surprised that they put on the DVD a behind the scenes thing where they're saying, "Well, the movie's made. We can't change it now." Like
yeah.
it's very candid, I think. Surprisingly candid. It was like they were acknowledging that, yeah, this is a shitty movie.
I'll just send it to you because I think it was a bonus feature on one of the on a Phantom Menace DVD or something like that. But
Well, that's
it was a
really
behind the
impressive.
scenes of the making of the movie and how kind of messy it was to begin with. Not saying that all Star Wars movies haven't had that, especially with the first one.
Yeah, I'm
Read
it's not like
all of the hardships that they went through with the first movie. It's like, oh my god.
and it's not like they're not like all perfect. You know, they've all
Oh
got
yeah.
like most films, they've all got problems, but like, I do think the difference is ultimately it does come down to, okay, is this a good movie or is this a bad movie? And that is just something that you instinctively know. And it's like, okay, you can say with Phantom Menace that, yeah, it's kind of enjoyable in its own way, but it's not a good movie.
Yeah.
Whereas
It
A
doesn't
New Hope,
most of the story, if you ignore the plot, it's a pretty good movie because the plot, when you actually like look at the plot, makes no fucking sense, and neither does the
no.
plot in Attack of the Clones.
And it's boring as well. They're all quite boring. I mean, even Revenge of the Sith, which I think was the best one, I don't think, unless I was kind of marathoning them, I would say I'd like to just sit down and watch Revenge of the Sith. I just fancy
Yeah.
watching it. Like, you know, for me, yeah, for me, they're just not fun movies. If they weren't Star Wars,
Yeah.
they would be completely forgettable. They'd have nothing going for them. I mean,
Mhm.
apart from maybe some cool imagery, like, I mean, that would be it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the new one.
Yeah, we'll enter spoiler territory now, so if you haven't watched the movie, turn it off. Turn this off now, because
Turn it off.
we're gonna get into
God,
it pretty hard.
turn it off! Turn the damn thing off! No!
Alright.
Did you enjoy that?
Yeah. So J.J. Abrams did a lot of stuff in this movie that I really, really loved, and it makes me sad that he's not doing the other ones.
Yeah, me too. Although, I mean, I think
even he came out and said like he read the script, or someone came out and said like he read the script for the next one, like the first cut of the script, and he said that he's sad he's not doing it, that he's not directing.
yeah, I
And
do
I'm like,
think that. I think
I'm sad you aren't too, JJ. I really want you to.
you've pronounced JJ 50 different times since we've started this, by the way.
JJ Abrams.
You've been like KJ, JK.
JJ Abrams.
I swear to God, you've done that. But yeah, like I heard that too. I mean, I think that the person who is directing the next one is in like relatively like I think it's in good hands. It's the guy that directed Looper, and I think that's meant to be kind of a good movie, and he's meant to be a good choice. So I'm kind of I'm excited. I think based on how good this one was, I don't think they would do anything to jeopardize that.
Yeah,
And this one,
I hope like they're at least like creatively consulting J.J. Abrams, because he obviously knows what he's doing. Like
yeah, I'd much
he's
rather
obviously like he set up this story that he obviously wants told in a specific way.
yeah,
And
exactly.
that's gonna go in a specific direction. And I hope he's at least like a creative consultant, or like Rian Johnson's like calling JJ up on the phone and saying like, hey, what did you want to do with this character or whatever? Or
Yeah,
what's your
sure.
idea?
I think the thing is I want them to feel like in the same way again that the original trilogy did. I want them to feel like a complete piece. I think that was one of my biggest issues with Harry Potter is like tonally all 7 films like certain beginning are like starkly different. And I really, really don't want that. I want them to feel tonally like they're part of one trilogy. But I think that'll happen. I don't think they won't. I don't think they'll let that not happen. I mean, I just think there isn't a thing I would have changed about Force Awakens. I thought it was perfect. I mean, J.J. Abrams just completely fits into that world. And I think it's really interesting because, I found one of my issues with Star Trek, even though I did quite like the first Star Trek movie, was that
The Star
it
Trek,
was,
the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies.
yeah, well, that they were too knowing and too winking and too, they didn't really have a lot to do tonally with the original
See,
Star Trek.
I didn't see those. So
Oh, okay.
are they kind of
Well,
like here's a reference, wink. Here's Leonard Nimoy, wink. Like,
a little bit, yeah. I mean, I think I would say the first one has more of an emotional undercurrent than that. But I mean, I thought the second one was kind of a piece of shit, to be honest. And I mean, I just think J.J. Abrams fits much better into the Star Wars world. I think that's a
well,
world he is much more.
he's even said that he's more of a Star Wars fan than he is a Star Trek fan. He
Yeah,
came out and said he didn't grow up with Star Trek. He grew up with Star Wars.
yeah,
He went to the premiere of Star Wars when he was a little boy, and it changed his life forever. You know?
yeah, sure. I mean, and you can really tell because that is a world that he is completely comfortable inhabiting, and by fuck, it shows.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, go on.
Big thing. I didn't think. I loved what he did. Here's my one thing that I loved the most. One of the things I love the most is that in A New Hope, you really didn't know, like, you were not emotionally attached to your villain.
Yeah,
Darth Vader really didn't have a character until Empire.
yeah.
But they immediately attach you to Kylo Ren in this first film. And I really like that.
That's really interesting.
You
I
immediately,
hadn't.
like, I immediately was attached to this villain. I thought he was interesting, and he had a lot more character in this movie than Darth Vader had in A New Hope.
Oh yeah, I think that one of the things about A New Hope is that obviously they didn't know what Star Wars was going to be. So I think, with hindsight, you can sort of say actually giving the villain a little bit more emotional weight makes sense. But one of the things I really, really liked about Darth Vader, which I think Kylo Ren had, and I think they really got right about Kylo Ren, is that he was also genuinely scary. He didn't feel like just kind of a big, like over the top villain, even though he has obviously quite an outlandish costume, he's got the deep voice. There was something really frightening about him that Kylo Ren absolutely had. I mean, I would argue
he wasn't like a Palpatine.
no,
Who
no, and I mean, I would argue that
Palpatine is not scary. Like, Palpatine's fucking hilarious to me. Like,
yeah, I mean, like Count Dooku as well. He's funny. He's a
Christopher
funny
Lee.
guy. But yeah, I really found Kylo Ren doing that voice creepy. I found Adam Driver doing that voice creepy.
He's a great actor. I had no idea he was such a good actor.
He's a brilliant actor, and it was kind of, I think they managed to, like, there's a Twitter page which is really funny called Emo Kylo Ren.
My favorite Twitter of all time.
It's so great, like him being like, "Why are we celebrating Life Day? It's not even our religion." Like,
Yeah.
fucking sweet. I like it so much. But I mean, I don't actually think, like, there are elements of that in the character, but I mean, I don't think. I think if he was just an emo boy, you probably wouldn't be intimidated by him. Whereas I think
he's not an Anakin, which I like.
yeah,
They-
exactly.
They made him like
He's
there
more
were
of a
there were
snake.
funny there were amusing moments with him that they acknowledged, like, yeah, he's kind of a whiny brat. But he's
Yeah.
not a whiny brat like Anakin. Like,
No,
Anakin really didn't
absolutely
have
not.
any problems, like real problems, but besides, like, you could say he had a lot of problems, like, after his mother died. But, like, other than that, he's like, I'm jealous of Obi-Wan for literally no reason.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like, it's a shame. I don't see Anakin Skywalker as Darth Vader in the sense that the Anakin Skywalker they portrayed in those prequels is not the Darth Vader character that I love.
Yeah.
Sorry to slightly derail, but yeah, I just feel very strongly about that. But no, I mean, I think you're right. He's not an Anakin Skywalker at all. I mean, I think he's much closer to a Severus Snape.
He
You
has
know,
he has daddy issues.
Yeah, exactly. And he's bitter and he's immature but basically, still complex, still intimidating, still powerful, still everything you would want for, one of the movie's central villains. And one thing I really want is for them not to do what they did with Darth Vader, which, I think for that movie worked and made sense and everything, but I don't want them to follow that same pattern.
Mhm.
So I'd like for him to stay bad. I don't want him to have any kind of redemption.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on that?
that's another thing we saw, which is like his struggle with the light side. Like he would openly say, like, I'm feeling the pull toward the light again, grandfather, while talking at the Darth Vader helmet.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really. I'm glad he's like kind of like a vulnerable villain. Like he could turn at any time, but obviously now he's completely gone over the edge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he had to do something so extreme to get there, and it is that thing, I think that in a way makes him creepier. Like the idea that he considers the light pulling him towards it to be something bad and something dangerous. Like there's something almost sinister about that. Like the scene where, and this is a huge spoiler.
Yeah.
So please don't
Yeah,
listen.
we've already said we're in huge spoiler territory. If you're not gone by now, you better go now because this is like the big.
This is the biggest spoiler of them all.
The big one from the movie.
So when Kylo Ren kills Han Solo,
his father,
and he's crying, and he's saying, can you help me?
Yeah, that was the point where I was like, oh no.
Like, I think we all knew what was coming.
I knew that like once he said that, I'm like, fuck. Like,
yeah.
That was another
really
thing.
I didn't trilogy if this ends well.
I was so confident, 100% that J.J. Abrams, even though I love him, would not have the balls to kill off one of the main three of the older cast.
Well, it just, it just didn't
now
even
it makes sense.
I mean,
because Harrison Ford's been trying to get Han Solo dead for years, and Lucas wouldn't.
He wanted him dead in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, Lucas wouldn't do it. But I mean, obviously, this is like, J.J. Abrams was like, okay, yeah. I mean, he listened to Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford wanted him killed off, and J.J. was like, okay, yeah. We'll do that.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, I think, it's a great emotional arc. I think, Harrison Ford still gets a fantastic arc in the movie. Oh, yeah. I think, he is, he's in his 70s. He's probably not going to want to do another one. I mean, it makes complete sense. But, I mean, yeah, I think that scene, I think the way that Adam Driver played it was insanely creepy. It really, really affected me.
I like the lighting in that scene, too. If you notice, did you notice the lighting in that scene?
Not particularly. What
there was like kind of like you almost see kind of like one half of Ben is his real name before he was Kylo Ren, of his face, like kind of like having like a bluish, lightish tone to it, and then the other side like really dark and red, and then once the thing blocks out the sun and it's completely dark, and then he shoves it Han Solo, like that's his change completely to the dark side, and I'm like, oh my god, that's great cinematography and great use of light.
Oh wow,
great use of colors.
I'm gonna have to pay attention to that next time I see it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was one of those things where, it was one of those moments, one of the sort of central moments in the film where you could just feel that kind of palpable sort of either excitement or tension or whatever in the audience. Like, it was one of those movies that, even though I didn't want it to be ruined for me by fucking idiots talking on their phone or whatever, which is always a risk when you go to the cinema, like, I wanted to see that with an audience. I did there too, was no
because I knew, I went, the first time I saw it, I went preview night, which was the day before it came out.
Yeah.
I saw the first 3D IMAX showing, and it was packed, and the people around me were so cool. Like, that's why I like going to opening nights, because no one there is going to be a dick, because they're passionate enough to not want to ruin the movie as well.
Yeah, nobody's there to kind of talk through the whole thing and eat popcorn, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like,
if you're there to see Star Wars first IMAX showing the day before it comes out, you're not going to be a dick and be talking on your phone.
Yeah. Yeah, you're there to see Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, so it was, I think for me, the moment where I realized, like, shit, I'm excited about this now, is, it was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, pause, "Bah!"
Yeah.
And I knew, like, fucking hell, like, this actually means a lot to me. I'm really, really fucking
I got
excited.
emotional. I was ready.
I got super fucking emotional. I mean, you know, and then,
Also, I think part of it might have had to do with me, like, being tired. I waited on a line for 6 hours.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
we got there at about 1 o'clock and there was a line, and I told Wesley, I said, I'm gonna get in that line. You can come with me or not, but I'm gonna get in that line. He said, okay,
Did
let's
he,
go.
did he get in the line with you?
Yeah.
Ah. So there was that moment. There was obviously the Chewie we're home moment. I mean, Georgia actually said that when both Han and Leia came out, people clapped. She
Me
actually
too.
started to clap
Oh
for
yeah,
Leia.
yeah, like
Uh,
everyone was cheering at everything.
yeah,
I was having a
C3O.
great time.
Yeah, C3PO, when he came out, she said that people were cheering and getting excited. I mean, and for me, yeah, it was exactly the same. I think everyone that went to see it would say that those were the moments. And also, one thing I really, really loved was that I was equally excited by all the wonderful new stuff. So it was like, it was great seeing Han Solo again. It was great seeing Leia again. But it was also fucking great, like, discovering, like, oh, you know, John Boyega and Daisy Ridley are brilliant, and I really like them, and I probably like them as much as I do the original trio. And like Oscar,
I love this trio of Finn, Ray, and Poe Dameron.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
absolutely in love.
exactly. Like I'm really looking forward to that developing because I was obviously like, as far as I was concerned, Poe Dameron had died. Like, because I didn't really know much about like who was in it and like, you know, whether they were contracted for the other movies or whatever. So yeah, as far as I was concerned, Poe Dameron had died, and I was so fucking happy to have him back because even in one little scene, you get the sense that him and John Boyega have a load of chemistry.
Uh-huh.
They're bros before hoes, and also, I mean, fucking Ray. Ray's so brilliant. Ray's such a brilliant character.
Mhm.
But they all
So
were. They were
let's
perfect.
talk about so everyone's trying to figure out who the fuck Ray's parents are. And I have three theories. Okay?
I think she could be Luke's son.
Luke's
I think,
daughter.
oh, not Luke's daughter. She could be Han's daughter. That, you know, is also entirely possible. Um, I mean, I really, beyond that, I don't have any
I
theories.
mean,
I mean,
there's a whole slew, like that's been a running theme in Star Wars of like sons and fathers and like kids be like everyone's connected. I have three theories.
go on.
One is the Luke's daughter, one that everyone's like, yeah, that's totally it. I think it's possible, but I also think it's way too obvious.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I think
absolutely. And
I don't think uh, this is you have to be in the mind of J.J. Abrams, which is kind of a he's kind of a hard nut to crack
yeah, sure.
when it comes to stuff, and he'll flat out lie and say no, that's not what that is. So it's also like what he did with the second Star Trek film, like he was so
Oh, when he
adamant
was just
he was
like,
so adamant that he's like, no, Benedict Cumberbatch is not Khan.
yeah,
He's
yeah. I mean,
absolutely not.
I really admire that about him. I admire the fact that he is able to go that far because, I mean, you know, all it does is increase the enjoyment and the speculation. And I mean, I also think, because yes, she has the Force, so it is conceivable that she's Luke's daughter, but she also has the attitude and the skill set, the awesome skill set of Han Solo.
So
So
you
I
think
really think,
her and Kylo Ren are brother and sister?
I think that's entirely possible. Yeah, I do.
My second theory is that she's a Kenobi.
Oh,
Like
ooh.
Obi-Wan is her grandfather, maybe?
That's possible. I mean, it would mean that Obi-Wan would have had to have had a child,
Yeah.
which, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong,
Well,
but is that ever been...
Obi-Wan would have had to have a child, and then that child would have married and given birth to Ren. I'm saying that the most possible outcome of her being a Kenobi is that Obi-Wan is her grandfather.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, but do you think, I mean, has it ever been established that Obi-Wan has had a child, or is that
I'm
just...
not sure. See, that's the thing. I
Okay.
really don't know. They never established that in the movies. You know, that's something that they could visit. My main piece of evidence for that one is that when she's in the basement and having those visions, when
Mm.
she's holding Luke's lightsaber, um, those are the parts where you can hear, by the way, Yoda, Frank Oz's Yoda, which
Oh, can
those
you?
are
Oh,
those are
wow.
canned lines from Yoda, but there are also, you can also hear Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan.
Really?
You can,
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
JJ came out, I mean, JJ said Frank Oz is in it, and Ewan McGregor actually came in and recorded dialogue
Oh, wow.
for
No, I
for
didn't
that
know that.
scene. So, I mean, at a
That's
point you
really
can hear
cool.
him clearly say Rey, and I think some other stuff I can't
Wow.
remember. But that's my main piece of evidence for that one. And then my third one is a little more out there, and I think I saw this one on Reddit, and BB-8. I kind of saw this one on Reddit, and that is that Rey is a clone of Luke,
Oh,
because we've already seen that cloning is canon in this universe.
yep, sure.
Maybe someone, the theory here is that someone found Luke's chopped off arm from Empire and like
Wow.
tried to make clones of him or something, and
I mean, it is out there.
one of them turned out to be a girl. And I think that would make it even more tragic because he's waiting for her parents, but what if it turns out there are no parents?
Yeah, yeah, true. I mean, you know, again, it is one of those things where, like, you could say, well, she had a memory of her parents leaving. Like, I'm sure there's a scene where she has a memory of herself as a little girl and she's saying something like, come back, or do you remember that bit?
Hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, that could be a hallucination, that could be a fantasy, that could be anything. That could be something that we have no idea about. I mean, it's one of those theories that it is out there, but I mean, so are a lot of theories. It doesn't mean they're not possible. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think on that. Have to think on that one.
Yeah.
I like the theory that oh, what was the other one? That she's a Kenobi. I think that's a really interesting theory. I like that. Can I talk about BB-8?
Yes. I can talk
So
about BB-8
everyone loves
every day, all day, every day.
BB-8. Everyone loves BB-8.
Can we
And
can
that's
we
because
just
BB-8.
establish that you can be a witness of mine that I loved BB-8 more than anyone else, way before anyone else?
See, I do have it on good authority. That my best friend Phoebe, who saw the movie like relatively early, probably as early as you did, also fell in love with BB-8
Well, I loved him before
very
anyone else
quickly.
did. I'm just saying.
Maybe you loved him before anyone else in America did. Can we say that?
Okay.
Okay, or I will bear witness to this.
For Australia, they
So
showed him. I'm
BB-8,
like, that's a cute droid. I love it.
cute droid. Oh, you loved him during like the trailer.
Oh yeah.
Ah, okay. You loved BB-8 first.
Okay.
That's it. But yeah, I mean, like one thing I loved about BB-8, which, you know, again, it does come back to the movies having like atmospherically such a similar feel to the original trilogy. Like, I mean, it was everything. I thought the design was really cool, first of all.
It's
And one thing that I did, which I really liked, was you felt like BB-8 had a character, even though it's a relatively simple design. You immediately got the sense of who BB-8 was, which I think is true of R2-D2, which is true of 3PO, or it's a bit easier to do with 3PO because
yeah,
he
3PO
can
he
talk.
talks. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's the sounds as well.
I
Like,
don't know how these fucking directors can do this, where like they have these droids. I mean, Lucas did it.
like beep, boop, boop, boop,
Lucas,
boop, boop, boop.
yeah, Lucas did it first, where like all these droids do is beep, roll around and stuff, but they still have
And
personality.
you immediately get a sense of who they are. Yeah, absolutely, they do have a personality. I mean, and I think, you know, that is part of what I like about it, but also it's something that, yeah, I do think is really distinctive about Star Wars is there are the very particular sounds that you associate with Star Wars. There are very particular, like the detail, the designs of the aliens, the prosthetics, you know, how varied they are, you know, how rich that universe feels. Um, you know, the sort of that kind of either really dusty, vast look or that really crowded, grungy look. Like, they don't feel, and it's one of the problems that I think that the prequels had is that they Star Wars shouldn't feel glossy. You know, it should feel dirty and rough and grungy. And you know, that should be reflected in the sounds, that should be reflected in the look, that should be reflected in the prosthetics. It should feel tangible.
Yeah. Which
And the prequels,
J.J. Abrams, by the way, did a great job at commissioning like Henson people again to do some puppets for this movie.
oh
And they
yeah,
all looked
God,
really great.
yeah, like when I saw Admiral Akbar again, like I was so happy with Big Billy Head. Like, and it's nothing, like it's barely a cameo, but it was just like,
I heard
yes!
people in theater going like, yeah, like people know who Admiral Akbar is still. I'm glad.
I was so happy. But yeah, I mean the prequels, they were glossy, and that's what Star Wars shouldn't be.
Yeah. I feel like Phantom Menace was a little better at not doing that, but definitely like Attack of the Clones, again, another reason why I don't like Attack of the Clones. It was very shiny, and like I'm like, why does it look like that? I mean, like the scenes I can't say that for in like the prequels, or like especially the like the ones on Tatooine feel really like rusty kind of.
Yeah, I agree.
Like
I
especially
agree. But,
with
I mean,
like
and
the
I also
the Watto's junk shop and shit like that. Like it all looks really, really like almost like a Middle Eastern country, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you about Attack of the Clones. I think they did completely abandon that, and I think that's a real shame. And yeah, one of the many problems, I think.
Like just look at like where Boba Fett and Jango Fett live on that. What I can't remember the fucking planet it was, but where Obi-Wan went to this place for no reason. I forgot why, and they told him about the clone army, and
yeah, I know, I agree with you. I think, you know, there were exceptions. I think there were things in the prequels that, you know, did capture that, but for the most part, yeah, they are just too glossy. I mean, I think as well, in the early 2000s and the late 90s, you know, because they knew that they had this great tool, CGI, they were going to utilize it to the nth degree. And one of the things I really like about The Force Awakens is that it isn't too CGI heavy. I mean, it's like when you said that they were managing to utilize the Jim Henson workshop again, like that didn't surprise me at all. That makes complete sense because it does have that really tangible look. Like, I love the puppets, I love the prosthetics, I love the detail and the creativity in the aliens. Like, it was just one of my favorite things about them.
Can I also say that was probably the hardest part about watching the other movies again, was that every single version of Star Wars that you can get now legally is the special editions, which have the CGI in them that they put in the originals. There are not, as of now, there aren't any plans to release any theatrical versions, even though I think Disney absolutely should have done that before the new one came out. I don't know why. I think they could have made a shit ton of money by saying, here are the theatrical versions. There's no shitty CGI in A New Hope. There's no CGI Jabba the Hutt in your Jabba the Hutt scenes.
I'm under the impression that there are theatrical cuts available online.
Yeah, but they're like copied from VHSs and shit. Like every DVD you can get of Star Wars now, there aren't any theatrical versions. It's just the special editions. The newest theatrical versions were the VHSs. But there's not really any way to get like a really, really high quality cut of the theatrical versions as of right now. DVD or Blu-ray wise.
I feel like somebody told me that had changed as of like the last couple of days, but I will double check that because I could be.
I don't know.
I'd
have to double check.
Maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah, I feel like if there are, then I would have heard about it, because then Wesley would have absolutely bought them by now. But because he's like, I'm sick of these fucking special editions because they look.
It is a fucking crying shame.
Fucking watch a New Hope again and look at the shitty shit they put in, and it looks awful.
I mean, the thing that always stands out for me is Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. The CGI, like, because usually they just have like the cantina band or whatever, like, or like not the cantina band, but like that sort of thing.
In the special editions, they added in a scene in Return of the Jedi.
CGI band in Return of the Jedi in Jabba's palace.
Full musical number.
CGI band. Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's very entertaining, but it doesn't fit. It doesn't fucking fit in that
It's not
movie.
entertaining at all because it's very jarring. You're like, what the
Well,
fuck?
yeah, that's it, mate. Like as a standalone piece of CGI, that yeah, that's passable, I guess, but yeah, it doesn't fit in that movie. And that for me, like that's the biggest thing that stands out.
But I liked I mean, even I keep going back to this is what J.J. Abrams said, but J.J. Abrams literally did say he's like, I like using practical effects. We wanted to use practical effects for this movie because that's what made me love the original movies. Like he said when they first introduced like BB-8, he's like he had long talks with production people about how CGI BB-8 could have been like way easier, but they wanted to make a
Yeah.
puppet that the actors could interact with.
So BB-8 is not CGI ever, or I
No,
mean, he must be sometimes.
like maybe like when they're flying around and shit. I mean, definitely. I would guess when like they're flopping around in the Millennium Falcon and BB-8's just like being thrown around in the back. I assume a little bit of
Wow, no,
that's CGI, but other than that, like when he's rolling around and shit, like that's the puppet that they made for the movie.
I had no idea. That's extraordinary. I mean, it looks completely like, I mean, it looks real.
Yeah.
It looks like it fits into
Dude,
that
BB-8
world.
went to the fucking red carpet and he's rolling around.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
I think I can.
I love
It's a video. I think I sent you that video of it was Star Wars Celebration when they first brought BB-8 out, and it was the puppet, and everyone was flipping their
Oh,
shit because they're like, "How does that work?"
yeah, well, this is what I was thinking. Like, I mean, what are the mechanics of that? And I'll tell you what, that's another thing that I really like because logistically, even though it is all set in this futuristic style world, like time has passed, 30 fucking years have passed. The robots would have got more sophisticated looking.
hmm
And like BB-8 is much more like compact and sophisticated than R2-D2.
Not a trash can.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't make him out of
Or a
trash can.
Dalek, it makes Dalek trash can.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what else I have to say except, oh, one other thing. I know we've talked about this a lot, but like, you know, like ultimately what matters is, just that a character is good.
hmm
But it was really, really nice that there was like a Latino guy, a black guy, and a woman in the main three roles.
hmm
Like, and they were really, really well written, and it wasn't like the first thing you noticed about them. Like, they were just fucking brilliant characters. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
It was great. It was just great. I love it.
Here I have two gripes, but that's about
Oh,
it.
go on.
I didn't really particularly think that the shot at the very, very, very end, like the last shot of the movie, I thought that shot was a little weird. Like just
You're
the
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 second.
helicopter circle. I'm like that's like a documentary shot. That's not like a cinematic movie shot. It just looked out of place.
Well, no, I disagree because what it reminded me of was Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. There's a lot of
I mean,
that last scene had a lot of Lord of the Rings shit going on in it.
but you know what? You're the second person to have said this to me that they didn't like the last shot. Although what was really interesting was that this other person I spoke to, said that he felt that way the first time, and then the second time it didn't bother him at all.
Yeah, because I knew it
I
was
mean,
coming. The first time I watched it, I'm like, oh, okay, helicopter shot as the
huh.
last shot of the movie.
I
It
mean,
didn't really fit. I don't know. I did
I
like
mean,
I
no,
did like the scenery. It was a good chance to show off the scenery, which I believe that island is like it's like that's like somewhere in Ireland, right?
yeah. Well, I think a lot of it would have been shot in the UK just based on the look of it. I mean, I think I agree that it didn't fit. It did stand out, but it didn't bother me. I think just because it was a different planet. And I suppose it did give you the sense that R2, BB-8, and Ray had travelled, and that Luke had gone somewhere kind
Well,
of
it was
completely
R2 and 3PO, I believe.
Wasn't I feel
No,
like BB-8 was there as well.
no.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Oh, well, yeah, it gave you the impression that Luke had traveled somewhere really, really remote because it did feel like a different world to the ones they had inhabited. And so I guess an argument could be made that, it did serve some sort of purpose.
It's not great, but best Mark Hamill role ever. He got top billing for standing there and not saying a word
I know,
for
I
a
love it.
minute.
But you know what? I am so fucking glad that they kept him until because he felt present throughout the entire
That
film,
was one
and it
thing
was
I knew.
so
That was one thing I knew was going to happen. I'm like, we're not going to see Luke until like the last 5 minutes of the movie, and I was completely right about that.
really did call that right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you who else it was great to see again. Carrie Fisher, like,
Mhm.
just because if you know anything about her in real life, like, she's obviously had like a really like fucking hard life, but
Yeah.
she's just a badass and
Watching
she's
Carrie
so
Fisher
funny and
doing press for this movie has been like
it's
a
been
delight.
fucking hilarious. Her, her, Graham, her and Graham Norton, with John Boyega and Daisy Ridley on the Graham Norton show, and like, yeah, their little friendship, Graham Norton and Carrie Fisher, like, it's the fucking like, it gives me
She
life.
brought her her dog with to
Dog,
like every
the dog.
interview.
She bought her fucking dog. Come on, so
I
good.
saw she brought him to the Conan O'Brien interview too. So I think
I
she's been
love
bringing
it.
him everywhere.
That's so fucking cool. She's so cool. I mean, the moment when her and Hans saw each other again, I thought was like, I think for me, like on some level, that had been what I was anticipating more than anything. And then C3PO showed up and cockblocked
Han
them, and I
Solo.
realized, I realized that that's what I'd been looking forward to more than anything.
Do your best 3PO because you have the accent. Can you sound like Anthony?
Okay, I am C3PO, human cyborg relations.
Good. You
It's
probably
good.
didn't recognize me because of my red arm.
So good. Most people I know really fucking hate C3PO, but I love
What?
him.
Why?
I know, because they're
He's great.
stupid, boring bastards.
Oh yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
guys.
he is kind of like a prick in like the original trilogy, but I love him. That makes
Well,
me love him even more.
well, yeah, quite. I mean, what I've heard, interestingly enough, is that Anthony Daniels is a complete prick in real life. Apparently Kenny Baker, who plays R2-D2,
Yeah.
when first filming the original trilogy, would say to Anthony Daniels, like, on the Friday before they were all going home for the weekend, he'd be like, "Oh, bye, Tony, have a nice weekend." And Anthony Daniels could be standing there not talking to anyone, just look at Kenny Baker and be like, "I'm talking to someone," and walk the fuck off.
Yeah, I've heard
Like, just
I've
totally
heard
fucking
that they
burn the
had like
guy.
a thing that wasn't very friendly. But you know what?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
I don't know.
Oh, go on.
I wasn't there. I can't be like
Yeah, oh, exactly, exactly. I mean, like, I'm willing to bet it wasn't just Anthony Daniels, because
I,
these things very rarely are
yeah,
just
I've
one
heard I've
person.
heard Anthony Daniels in interviews and he seems like a perfectly nice guy. So
Yeah, he
it,
always
it makes
is
those
completely.
stories kind of even harder to believe. But
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
I don't
it's
know.
incredibly
Yeah,
it is true that, like, I'm sure that there are two sides to that story.
yeah.
I don't know, like,
Also, it's been 30
I
years,
just
so
really like. Sorry.
also it's been like 30 or 40 years since that. So like
Yeah,
maybe things have changed. I don't know. I wasn't there.
probably. I mean, I like the idea. I like the idea that they're feuding though, because then it's like it makes the scenes where he's like, "Oh, I've missed you, my friend," like even funnier.
Isn't well, I don't think who was the guy that played R2 or puppeted R2D2 in the originals?
Kenny Baker.
Yeah,
Kenny
I don't
Baker.
even think I don't because they don't really need him. I don't think
No,
he's in this
they're
movie.
all back. Peter Mayhew's back, who played Chewbacca, and he's just a guy in a suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all. I mean, all like they were really good about that. Like, or for recognizing, I guess that like it might appear like some of these actors are just people in suits, but like they obviously like they do bring a physicality that is important. They do understand those characters. So like, yeah, I think it's kind of nice that like Kenny Baker's back. I think it's kind of nice that Peter Mayhew's back. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else really to bring up. I don't know about you.
I had a point. Hold on. I had a point. I had it. Shit. I like that Harrison Ford doesn't seem like a grumpy old prick in this movie because he has been
No,
for the past few years. He's been like, oh, when he's talking about like any movie he's doing, but he obviously
Yeah.
seems like he seemed very passionate again about getting back as Han Solo, even though he's like,
Yeah, and it didn't feel like it was just grumpy Harrison Ford like running down corridors.
yeah, like he was playing
it
Han
felt-
Solo. He wasn't playing
Oh.
himself, which I really
Yeah.
thought was very much appreciated that he didn't
Yeah,
just
I
like
think a
play
lot-
himself.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that was a big fear that a lot of people had, and no, he absolutely delivered. You know, we got Han Solo. I mean, that was great. Because he has been. I mean, I guess he's a really old man, like, so it kind of makes sense
Yeah.
that he's been like, he has been a bit of a grumpy bastard these past few years.
I think being in like
I mean,
surviving a plane crash will probably do that to anyone though. Like,
yeah, sure,
kind of makes you
sure.
appreciate life a little more, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe he has kind of humbled somewhat. I mean, to be honest though, like, it is a little bit like the whole Kenny Baker, Anthony Daniels thing. Like, ultimately all I care about is that, you know, he's good in the part and he gives a shit in his performance, and he absolutely did.
Mm-hmm. And just seeing him, like, seeing Han, like, go from the first movie where he was like, the Force is just like mumbo jumbo or whatever, to this movie being like, yeah, it's all real, was like really, I thought it was pretty chilling. I thought it was really cool to hear that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, it was one of the things that I really, really liked was that, you know, when Leia and Han and Luke were in the movie, it was because, you know, they weren't cameos. They weren't just there to pop up and impart information.
Yeah.
They were characters. They had an arc.
I mean,
and
Mark
really
Hamill,
think
I know
that-
Mark Hamill's role is going to be, like, way bigger in the next one, and I can't wait, because I love Mark Hamill, and I love seeing him act,
Yeah.
and, I love old Mark Hamill even more than I love young Mark Hamill, so,
Yeah, I mean, he's an awesome guy.
I
and
can't
it
wait
was
for him
great
to be
seeing
like
him-
the Yoda or the Obi-Wan of the next movie. Well,
Well,
I think
I
he's gonna
was
be more
thinking
like he's gonna be more like
the
the
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan of the next movie. I think Maz is gonna be kind of our new Yoda-ish.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I actually hadn't thought about Maz as a Yoda figure, and obviously she's not going to be like that character again, but there were real elements of that. You know, she was old, she was wise, but she did also have that attitude and that sense of humor. I thought Lupita Nyong'o was fucking brilliant in that role.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved her. in
Yeah,
that part.
I mean,
She
like
just nailed it.
that's another thing. There's so many questions that were left unanswered. Why does she have Luke's lightsaber? Why
Yeah.
doesn't she tell them why she has it? Why does she have to be all Yoda and be like, no, I'll tell you later?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, though. There is so much cool for
What
a,
I
you
can't
know.
wait, I really, and this is why I can't wait for more Mark Hamill in the next movie.
Yeah.
I want to know what went wrong with Kylo Ren. I want to know
Yeah.
the story. Like, I want, like, not a flashback necessarily, even though that would be cool, but I want to know, like, what went wrong there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, who are the Knights of Ren? You know, did
Because
he?
from what I
You
gather,
know, were they just other Jedis that he led astray, like, or other Jedi in training that he led astray? I mean, like, yeah, there are so many unanswered questions.
because obviously, like, Kylo Ren's big problem, again, is that he has daddy issues, because it seems like, from what I gathered, Han and Leia were raising him, and turns out he has the Skywalker bloodline. And
yeah, he has the Force.
And so Leia and Han just kind of dumped him off with Luke.
Yeah,
and even
he was
Leia said it was
obviously-
the biggest mistake they ever made, was just dumping him off there with Luke. And I
Yeah,
can
he
see
was
why that would give
obviously
you, like,
bitter
parental
about-
issues, you know?
Yeah, he was obviously bitter about being sent away. And I think there's probably an element of that, and then also an element of, like, entitlement, because unlike his parents, he has the Force, so it's almost like he feels superior to them, but then
I would
also
say
completely unloved by them.
I would say Leia has some Force in her, but she's never been trained in it or anything.
Well, yeah, there's definitely an element of that, but, like, basically, like, it is that combination of a superiority complex because he has the Force and an inferiority complex because he was sent away, and that stuff always is gonna fuck you up.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a big emo.
That's why I think Kylo Ren's so interesting. And I can't wait to see more of him, to be honest with you. Like, every scene he was in, I'm like, yes, more.
Yeah,
more
no,
Kylo
I
Ren.
agree. And anytime he, like, smashed stuff up, I was like, yeah! I like that.
He's just I like the way they wrote him as kind of like a whiny baby. a whiny Hot Topic
Yeah,
baby.
yeah.
But not in the way that they wrote Anakin as a whiny Hot Topic
Yeah.
baby, you know?
Well, I think what it comes down to is the fact that, I mean, I think in part, like, as much as I feel sorry for Hayden Christensen, I think it has to be said that this is in part due to the performances. Like, I do think Hayden Christensen was crap. You know, I just don't think he was very good. But he was also really badly written. You know, who's to say he couldn't have been better if he hadn't been written better?
Because all the movies are supposed to be, like, cyclical. Like, this is why people are saying, like, oh, Force Awakens is too much like A New Hope. It's supposed to parallel A New Hope. Each trilogy is supposed to parallel each other with the kind of exception of Phantom Menace. I mean, there's some New Hope in Phantom Menace, but not a butt ton, but there's definitely stuff in there, like the killing of Qui-Gon is definitely, in front of his Padawan is definitely very reminiscent of Vader killing Obi-Wan in front of Luke. You got Tatooine finding a strange boy on Tatooine on a desert planet. I mean, you got all these parallels. They're supposed to parallel each other, and I don't know why people don't get that, because it's like, it's too much like,
well, I mean,
New Hope, and I'm like, no, it's not copying. They're supposed to parallel each other like that. I
was under the impression that people, because it's like my mum said exactly the same thing, but she was like, that's a good thing, you know, that's a strength, it's a merit, and I'd be inclined to agree. So the idea that there are people that don't get that is bizarre to me.
But what was I saying? Shit, Kylo Ren. The way they wrote Anakin, because in the first trilogy, Luke is your hero that you're supposed to identify with.
Yeah,
right?
And he's also kind of a little bit of a whiny baby in parts as well.
Yeah, well, you're supposed to identify with him.
Yeah.
In the prequel trilogy, and this is, again, another thing that I don't really like, is that there's no real central main character. They give all of these actors
no, because you're not really...
Like, I feel like there's, like, 5 main characters in that movie, and I'm like, I don't know which one I don't know which character is supposed to be the protagonist that you're supposed to identify with. It's not Qui-Gon, it's not Obi-Wan, it's not Anakin, so who is it? I guess it's Anakin,
Well, no, because... Okay, here's the problem, is that in all those movies, neither actor has the gravitas to... Because what you're supposed to, I think, is, even though, like, he's not a main character in the sense that, you know, arguably other characters could be called the main character. Like, you are supposed to kind of see it through his eyes. You're supposed to identify with him, but he's not a good enough actor to pull that off, and they didn't write him strongly enough for that to come across.
Yeah, and I'm not specifically talking about the acting. I'm talking about also mainly the writing. Like, their goal was to make a character that you're supposed to identify with. And they didn't do that with Anakin because he's way too just whiny and terrible, like a terrible person, even before he was Vader. Like, he went and killed all those sand people, and then went and killed all those... Well, that was after he made the turn, but even before that, like, he went and killed all those sand people, and we're supposed to, like, think that he's redeemed in some way by getting, you know... by getting back at those people because they killed his mother or whatever, but then he went and slaughtered the whole village of women and children, and I'm like, well, that's not very heroic of you to do at all.
Well, yeah, like, exactly. I mean, you would have to work really, really hard to make a likable character, but it is possible. They made Kylo Ren a likable character. Yeah,
and it wasn't well written. Kylo Ren in a very similar way, but you're not supposed to really identify with Kylo Ren because he's the villain.
But you're supposed to believe him, and you're supposed to like him. I don't think you're supposed
to like him. I think you're supposed to think he's
You're supposed to enjoy. You're supposed to enjoy watching him.
Yeah.
And you don't. You're supposed to enjoy watching Anakin.
But then again, I think that's something.
And you just
don't.
Like
the not having a main character. I think that Force Awakens has the same thing. Where, like, well, is Finn your main character? Is Rey your main character? Is Poe Dameron your main character? We don't really know, but all these characters are actually relatable this time, no matter who you think is the main character.
I mean, I completely agree with you. There isn't a Luke, is there? There isn't a you know, easily identifiable main character. But
I mean, Poe
I think
Dameron
I'll
obviously is supposed to be like kind of like your Han type, you know? So not really like a super important main character,
yeah,
especially not in this
yeah. I
film.
mean,
I
I
think
think
he'll have a bigger part in the other films, but the whether your character's Rey, like whether you think the main character is Finn or whether you think it's Rey, it doesn't really matter because they're both relatable. Whereas in Phantom Menace, you got 5 different main characters and you can't relate with any of them.
well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the thing is yeah, you're right. Like all of yeah, like Leia and Ren, you know, they're easily kind of even though they're markedly different in terms of their roles, like they they kind of identify a lot of the same traits. The same with Poe Dameron and Han, the same with Finn and Luke. You know, they're not exactly the same, any of them, but they all slot into a certain
Yeah,
role. And it doesn't bother me so much that there isn't an easily identifiable main character because they are just all so good.
yeah.
And whoever's on screen, you feel like you care about and you're invested in and you want to know their story.
I want to know. I mean, personally, I can't wait for Rey's backstory. I want to know more about
Oh,
Finn.
me too.
I want to know more about Finn, definitely. I mean,
I want to know more about all of them. I mean, like,
I,
I
I
want to
like
know.
that they gave like a backstory to like a stormtrooper because you never really got
Yeah, that was.
like
I mean, that was a really, really interesting idea, and it was one of the ways that it was a really, really clever way to mark itself out from the original trilogy and tell, yeah, a story that hadn't been told before. I mean, because you do just sort of see the stormtroopers as these ciphers, and
yeah.
they're not,
Before
they're
then,
people.
stormtroopers are just like those guys. Like
Yeah, exactly. And actually, you know, they are like someone says, you know, taken from their families as children and kind of trained to be these war machines, like brainwashed. And that's an interesting story to tell.
mhm. I forgot to say my other gripe with this movie because I said I had two, but I never got to it. Um, I hate that Captain Phasma went out like a bitch, but I don't think she's dead.
Well, they never explicitly say what they did to
Oh
her
yeah.
or if in they did anything
My
to
my
her.
evidence for that is that I mean Gwendolyn Christie in interviews just really loves Captain Phasma and is like hypes her up so much, and then the movie she just like doesn't do anything. So that's my theory that like she's gonna come back in another movie because
Yeah, I
she's
think
way
she would
too
have
cool to
to.
just like Boba Fett out of the movie. Like
Yeah, totally. I mean, and there was such a huge amount of hype about her that I think she's got to be back because if that was her only role in that movie, like, yeah, she didn't
like
really
if she
do enough
doesn't
to
come back,
justify
then
the
that's
hype.
like oh well they made her to make toys then. You know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And
It
she's
just
too
doesn't it
cool.
doesn't sit right. Like
Yeah, she's too cool a character for them to hype up that much and then not do anything.
because
Like,
Gwendolyn Christie was like you listen to her interviews talking about this character and you think it's going to be like this super important character especially in this movie but I'm like it's actually not. Oh wow.
yeah, so she should be. She's got, you know, she's got a
When
lot
you
going
get
for her.
Gwendolyn Christie like you got to use her, you know. Gwendolyn Christie's a
And she's
great actress.
fucking, yeah, she is, and she's a fucking cool character. You just don't see enough of
You,
her.
you
So I
gotta
think you're
you
right.
gotta
I think
get
they
her
are.
while you can because she's in fucking Game of Thrones. That's
Yeah,
another
she's.
reason I think they killed her off is maybe she had Game of Thrones scheduling issues, but I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think they did kill her off because I don't think it would make any sense to hype a
Well,
character up that
kill her
much and
off
then
in
not.
quotes, like kill her off.
Yeah, yeah, they didn't do enough with her to justify the hype if they were going to kill her off. And she's a really cool character. It would be a
Like
mistake.
like with Boba Fett. I mean, we saw him fall in the Sarlacc pit, even though in extended universe he gets out. But I'm not gonna get into that. But
No, no. As far as I'm concerned, he's dead.
yeah, um, yeah. I mean, if we had seen her get fucked, then I would have been kind of mad. But I think there's a reason they didn't show her. Like she obviously
Yeah, yeah. I think that's
got
another
escaped
thing.
and is gonna come back. You know?
I think if you were gonna kill, I think if you were gonna kill her and you wanted people to know that she was dead, you would show her getting killed.
Yeah.
It just doesn't add up
Yeah.
that she's dead.
I'm holding
I
out for the fact that she's not dead. Just
yeah,
I
me
think
too.
people like complaining about that are forgetting that there are two other movies that are coming. Which
Yeah,
that's another thing.
sure.
People are forgetting that this isn't going to be the only one. That you know, first in a trilogy, yeah, there's going to be a little under characterization, but that's because they're saving it for the other two. because you got to
Well,
fill
yeah,
the other two with
exactly.
something else. If you get rid of Starkiller Base, your main threat in the first movie, then you got to have other stuff to fill the other two with. You know?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I don't know. I mean, do you have anything else you wanna? Because I don't. I'm pretty like
Star Wars out.
I'm
Um.
pretty Star Wars up.
Uh. I mean, I have a huge crush on Adam Driver now. Is that bad? Is
Cool.
that bad? He has
No,
a weird
I
face. I don't know. Like he's like cute weird face. I don't know. I think he's very attractive, especially in this movie.
I
Like
like.
he's my new.
I really.
I've been calling him my new emo lust object.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he's officially
I like
replaced like Loki as like villain I have a lot of feelings about.
Yeah.
I'm like, move over, Tom. Get out of here.
You gotta have one. I mean, I do. I can definitely see the parallels, but I think we've had all the Loki we're gonna get. I think, and yeah,
Well,
Kylo
Thor
Ren.
Ragnarok's coming out. Thor
Oh, that's
Ragnarok's gonna
true.
come out in a couple of years.
Yeah, that's true. That's
We
exciting.
left off
Yay.
with fucking Loki and the throne, and we gotta know
Oh, that's
we
true.
gotta know how that ends.
I really like John Boyega.
I do too. He's very cute.
He's nice. He's nice. Um, but yeah, I'm quite happy to finish up if you are. I don't have anything.
Um, no, I think we just about covered most of it. I mean, we'll probably talk more about it.
Oh yeah.
Georgia wanted to be here, but she has a sore throat.
Oh,
She did see
also
the movie.
that's kind of my fault as well because I think she was going to join us for another podcast, but then I was like not there for.
Yeah.
My bad.
Um,
My bad.
but I mean, we're gonna talk about it probably in another one once more people have seen it. Caitlin hasn't seen it yet. But
Oh, yeah,
Georgia
definitely. I mean,
Georgia's
I
seen
swear.
it, but she's just sick right now and can't talk. So
Yeah. Well, I'm quite happy to
wait,
carry on
Georgia
talking about
Georgia
it with
did give
other
me
people,
notes.
but
Hold on, I gotta find them.
they were just on
Footnotes.
the chat thread.
Yeah.
I mean, I've pretty much like I think it was that people were cheering for Leia and Han.
Yeah. Oh, she did say that Joe spoiled it for her. What happens to Han because
Ew.
I'm like, fuck
Bad
Joe.
Joe.
Joe, why would you do that?
Joe, you ruined everything.
Yeah.
Boo.
She also said I love Rey and how she basically had to keep saving Finn.
I love
Kylo
Rey,
Ren is
and
a
I love
baby,
that
and
as
I
well.
agree
Like,
Kylo Ren is a huge baby, but I love him.
no, I mean,
I
I
love
do
him
think
all the
that
more for being a huge baby.
I do think that's interesting though. That like, yeah, Rey was so not a damsel in distress, and almost to the point that I would actually argue Finn was kind of a damsel in distress. Like Finn, like despite being like kind of a trained killer, he was a little bit of a bumbling idiot.
Yeah,
God love him.
I think that's a lot of
John Boyega.
John Boyega. Yeah.
Well, do you want to talk about the Georgia stuff when Georgia gets here?
Yeah, we
And then you guys can have a really in-depth,
um
deep conversation about Star Wars, and then I won't be Star Wars
to,
out
to end
anymore.
this off, I will read some emo Kylo Ren.
Yes, do it.
My dad thinks he's so good at fixing things, but he really isn't. Darth Vader could fix anything.
Yay.
My dad just knocked over my model Death Star and broke it, but he did not apologize. He said people should stop making Death Stars. I'm shaking. Constructs new lightsaber to cut the crusts off his sandwiches. Uncle Lando said my helmet made me look like a depressed lampshade, and then everyone laughed and high-fived him. I hate this family so much. Current status.
Yay.
Current status. In a Sarlacc pit, but emotionally.
This is so perfect. I really want to know who's behind it.
I wish more words rhymed with Darth Vader. I guess not every poem needs to rhyme. Dear Diary, Hux got me a poster of Darth Vader for my locker. I already have one just like it, but bigger. However, I appreciated the thought.
Oh, little Kylo Ren, I love you so much. Beep beep. Fuck you.
A thing a lot of people don't realize about Darth Vader is what a way he had with words.
He's so good.
Hold on, I'm still struggling. Spends whole afternoon unsuccessfully struggling to open a cling-wrapped My Chemical Romance CD. At Hot Topic, let me know when the Darth Vader patches are back in stock so I can place an order online. Those were sick. Hold on, I retweeted a few the other day that were really funny.
I hope it carries on for a while.
Dear Diary, Hux and I are wearing black to commemorate the defeat at the Battle of Endor. We both always wear black, but today it means more. Dear Diary, I'm taking grandfather's helmet to school today, so show Hux at lunch. I expect he will be quite impressed.
I really like Hux.
Yeah. In real life,
Nazi.
I forgot the actor's name, but he's like a fucking bearded ginger when he's not Hux.
Oh yeah, Domhnall Gleeson.
Yeah.
He was Bill Weasley in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
He's like a really sweet guy in real life by the sounds of it. He just seems lovely.
Yeah. Dear Diary.
But he's got a really good, like, sneery, like, sleazy, like Draco Malfoy kind of look about him as Hux.
Dear Diary, Mom and Dad still don't believe my name is Kylo. Dad laughs whenever I say it. Nobody at school calls me Kylo but Hux.
Aw, it's so sad.
Applies black eyeliner. My parents don't understand me and I hate them. Applies black helmet. Pod racing is the realest sport. I respect pod racers so much. And there's another one that just says Force slams bedroom door.
Oh, perfect. Right, I think that's a good place to end.
No, one more. I love this one. Dear Diary, Hux loaned me a copy of Mein Kampf. He loves it, but I thought it was a huge disappointment. No mentions of Darth Vader at all.
I'm so glad you made me wait for that one. I'm so glad you made me wait for that one. I think we can...
But by the way, that's at Kylo Ren on Twitter, except the E is a 3.
Yeah.
KYLOR3N at Twitter. Best Twitter account in the world.
He is everyone I went to school with.
Me too.
We wrapped?
I think we'll wrap here, yeah. We'll probably still talk more about Star Wars in the next few, so just, if you haven't seen it, be careful watching the next
be really, really
podcast or two, you know?
This is spoilery as fuck, this podcast, guys.
Yeah,
watch out.
Sorry. If you made it this far, I guess you already know that.
Yeah, truth.
Mm-hmm.
And if we ruined Han's death for you, it's your own fault.
Yeah.
Bye!
Bye!